Here's a riddle for you. What do you get when you cross a large number of burly Russian soccer fans and a hideous escalator that's seemingly been possessed by the same malevolent spirit in that car horror movie Christine? We're not going to give you the answer just yet. First, we want you to hear what's happened to other people when they've been on the wrong end of an escalator. Maybe after you'll be able to make an informed guess. Escalators don't exactly look very nice. They're like sets of jagged teeth that enter into an abyss and come back just as angry. Get bitten or even swallowed by those teeth and you're in for one hell of a ride. But let's start with something not teeth-related. An escalator was to blame for the 1987 King's Cross fire on the London Underground. What people didn't know is an escalator in that station had been collecting a lot of fluff and other stuff underneath it for many years. With escalators, especially back then, things slipped down the sides and in the cracks. We aren't talking about a few hairs and some little bits of paper from discarded tickets when we say things. It was later stated there were 19,400 pounds of waste under the main carriage, much of it highly flammable. On top of that, these were the odd escalators with wooden steps. A person dropped a match after they lit up a cigarette. A fire started. That turned into a deadly conflagration. Superheated gas carried the flames, which in turn heated the many old layers of paint on the walls. The escalator now looked like the stairway to hell. The place went up so fast it was impossible for many people to escape. 31 people died and 100 were injured, some very seriously. Just so you know what it felt like for some of the survivors, one of them later said a police officer was shouting, "Get out! Get out!" It was really turning panicky. One guy told the BBC he was in a state of shock when a fireball came hurtling toward him. He said, "I could hardly walk and was screaming in pain very, very loudly." Here's how being burned usually goes. The flames first burn the skin, which causes extreme pain. Then the nerves are burned through, but that's not enough to kill a person outright. But then their skin tightens, even enough to strangle someone. The trauma might cause the person to pass out by this stage, especially if the fire engulfs them. The flames damage the respiratory tract, and because a person can't breathe, they die. Even if they survive, they often die days after because the damage is irreversible. Pathologists in burning cases often state the cause of death was a multi-system organ failure. Those that didn't get eaten up by the flames died from smoke inhalation. People don't even have to have one small burn to die from this. According to the Nation Library of Medicine, smoke inhalation by itself has a mortality rate of 10%. The fatality rate for burns with smoke inhalation is 30 to 50%. It depends on certain factors though, how much smoke, age, and the health of the victim. The good news is if you were trapped in a tunnel and inhaled a lot of smoke, you would fall unconscious very quickly, usually within a few minutes. Death would also be rapid. Now for something as nightmarish as you can imagine, and it happened in 2015 in China. A woman was approaching the top of an escalator with her child. Staff were waiting at the top because they knew a panel after someone steps off was loose. It seems that the staff told the woman something was wrong, but had she known just how wrong, she would have run back down the escalator with her kid in her arms. When she got to the top, she pushed her son forward over the panel. He was home safe. She wasn't so lucky. As she stepped onto the panel, it opened like a gaping mouth, swallowing her. Her entire body disappeared into the guts of the machine. Her husband later said there were no warning signs at the escalator, nobody telling her to step off. The worst thing was, security footage showed that 2 workers at the mall almost met with the same fate when they earlier stepped on that dodgy panel. A better word would be trap door. But instead of just turning the escalator off, it remained on for another 5 minutes. That was enough time for the woman and the child to get on. The company that made the escalator was later blamed along with the mall staff. Let's remember it was 2015 and this was one of China's many glitzy ultra-modern malls. On top of that, the Chinese media said there'd been several accidents and deaths on escalators in recent months. What do you think would happen if the escalator you and many other people were on suddenly started going backward? That happened in a subway station in Beijing in 2011. At 9:30 in the morning at the Beijing Zoo, station exit A on line 4, one boy died and 30 other people were injured. One of those people described how it happened. He said first there was a crashing sound, then the rising escalator started going down. Then wave after wave of people began falling. I thought I was finished. Another person said people were screaming help when the escalator began to go in reverse. It was going down very, very fast. I could barely realize what was happening before I was crushed. Maybe you think going backward wouldn't be a big deal, but imagine going backwards really fast on one of those very long escalators, especially when the thing is crammed with people. News reports didn't say how the person died, so we can't add much more to the story. Another escalator accident in China around that same time involved a man losing a leg. In another, a boy almost lost his arm. Time magazine reported there were 3 gruesome accidents in 1 week in China in 2014 alone. That year in China, there were 49 escalator accidents and 37 deaths. So many Chinese citizens were scared after reading all the reports that many of them started taking some weird precautions on escalators. However, some were in jest to make a statement about the lack of safety. Maybe you think, China. It's not exactly a country renowned for its impeccable health and safety standards. Such an accident, you think, wouldn't happen in the good old US of A. Think again. The U.S. National Institutes of Health says there are about 10,000 injuries on escalators in any given year in the U.S. Many accidents involve old people, with more women than men. With younger people, the distribution between men and women is pretty equal. But get this, in 50% of the male cases, alcohol intoxication was involved. Impeccable health and safety standards are no match for the unadulterated stupidity of some young American men. In that report, we could find skull fractures, hip fractures, knocked out teeth, busted up ribs, bashed in faces, but no deaths. We could, however, find one recent story in which a boy died after falling from an airport escalator in the US, but the escalator was not at fault. The boy shouldn't have been allowed to climb on the thing. It goes without saying that if young folks grab the rail, the ride upwards is an exhilarating experience for them. But as a warning to parents or future parents, just remember that the fall back down can cause what the media called major trauma to the head. Here's more advice for parents. In 2017, there was a report about a girl getting her hair stuck in an escalator in the Philippines after bending down to pick up a toy. This caused her a lot of pain and a significant injury, but someone managed to hit the emergency stop button just in time. The news media had one big warning for parents: always hold on to your kids when on an escalator. Nonetheless, adults can get trapped by an escalator too. As you'll now see, that can be deadly. In 2015, a woman was riding a subway escalator in the Canadian city of Montreal. It was winter, and the metro in Montreal is pure heated bliss during those bitterly cold months. Still, scarves can be problematic. We'll let a policeman tell you what happened to the woman. He said her scarf got caught in the escalator, and then she bent down to try to get it out, and her hair got stuck too. The cause of death was strangulation by the scarf. If a person is strangled, it can take maybe 10 to 30 seconds for them to lose consciousness. You'll have all seen someone who was choked out in an MMA fight. If the pressure keeps being applied, it might take a person around 5 minutes to die. Firemen tried to resuscitate the woman, but they were too late to the scene. After her death, people said they were shocked that something they considered harmless could be a killer. One Montreal resident said, "Personally, I'm really traumatized because I use that escalator every day. I'll be very careful now about any threads hanging down or shoelaces for sure." Hey, wait a minute. Did she say shoelaces? No, please, not shoelaces. Yes, shoelaces. We have an accident involving those too. Fortunately, no one died. The guy lost a leg though, which is still a really bad day out. It happened in 2015 at a mall in Mexico City. The kid didn't realize his laces were undone, and when he rode the escalator with his buddies, his laces got caught at the bottom as he was getting off. He was lucky to survive. The media at the time warned people to check their footwear before they ride escalators. Folks shouldn't go barefoot either. These accidents are uncommon. It's true that peanuts are more dangerous, but as one escalator manufacturer said, they have enough power to pick up cars if they do catch you. A man in Northeast Washington in the US realized that in 1997, his sweater and coat somehow got caught at the bottom of the machine and he was strangled to death. The Washington Post said no one knew what happened. He may have been sitting down, or maybe he fell down, and that's how his clothing got caught. His estranged brother told the Post, "This is a shocker. We don't know what to make of it." The article said the Washington Metro was the longest subway system in the US at the time. This was the 4th death on its many escalators in the 21-year history. A spokesperson for escalator safety said about such accidents, "We can only do so much. After that, common sense has to take over." 2 previous fatalities also involved items of clothing getting caught and victims being strangled. In one case, the drawstring of a girl's coat caused the strangulation. In another case, the news just said a woman's clothes were caught. The autopsy report stated that she was intoxicated at the time. In yet another case, a guy was electrocuted when he touched the lights next to the escalator. Drunk accidents aren't common, but they have happened. In 2013, a 42-year-old man choked to death after his clothing was caught on an escalator in downtown Seattle. The media later said the man was seen drinking a bottle of brandy and staggering around. He apparently fell backward when riding the escalator. He didn't or couldn't get back up, so was carried down to that vicious little part at the front. It was game over after it grabbed his shirt. We're not sure if all the drunk accidents happen in the US or if other countries either don't report such deaths or their news reports don't get much Google love. We found yet another case of a drunk guy being killed on an escalator in the US. This happened in the Bronx neighborhood of New York City in 2018. His shirt got caught and he was dragged down. A bystander told told the press he was at the top. I saw the blood. His head was split open. All you see is this guy sprawled face down. The news report said he'd been drinking, allegedly. As for drunken escalator surfing, of course that happens, especially in America, where doing daft and dangerous stuff for attention is a national sport. In 2007, a drunk guy did that on a Las Vegas Boulevard overpass that stretched between the MGM Grand and the New York. He rode the rubber wave for about 4 feet and then was wiped out by 8 previously imbibed tequila shots. He lost his balance and went over onto the sidewalk, where he broke his neck. Now for possibly the most macabre death today. In 1963, an elderly woman was riding the subway in St. Petersburg, Russia. We don't know many details because we can only find one source, but we know her shoe heel first got caught. Then she bent down to retrieve it, but it seems the machine then snatched her hair. The report said her head became wedged between 2 steps of the moving stairs. She died as a result of the injuries. As for those soccer fans, after hearing what you've heard today, what do you think happened to them? It was certainly a unique accident. The game was a huge one, a Champions League match between CSKA Moscow and AS Roma. That meant a lot of Moscow fans on one escalator at Rome's La Repubblica metro station. We're talking about possibly 100 people on the escalator. The thing suddenly malfunctioned and started going down really fast. We don't mean twice the speed, we mean warp speed for an escalator. Bodies started piling up at the bottom and the escalator just kept going. Some people were crushed at the bottom and some people were pushed down onto that deadly bottom part. Amazingly, no one died, although around 24 people were injured, some seriously. One person had to have his lower leg amputated. You can understand the injuries were significant when you see the destruction at the bottom of the machine. One bystander later said, "I just witnessed a scene from an apocalypse. An escalator 1 meter from me began to accelerate as if it were going crazy." If that wasn't bad enough, Roma won the game 3-0. Now you need to watch Skinned Alive, Worst Ways to Die, or for something equally frightening, Impalement, Worst Ways to Die.